Do you believe in second chances? Let me tell you a story. This is Toby. Right now, he is known as the CEO of a multinational company. He sponsors an annual scholarship for gifted students, and he has also been recognized as one of the top 40 CEOs under 40. But Toby wasn't always a role model. In fact, when he was in secondary school, he was arrested for smuggling drugs. This is how it happened. Toby was very lucky enough to come from a comfortable background. His father sent him to the UK to study. While he was there, he stayed with his aunt and her husband, as well as their 2 children. Toby had a hard time making friends at first, but he settled in fine after a while. In school, he met a boy named Marcus. Marcus always had more than enough pocket money and new gadgets. In year 11, he was nicknamed Big Spender. Toby set on odd jobs now and then to save money. He wanted to buy a boombox, keyboard and a microphone. Toby asked Marcus to refer him, assuming Marcus had a babysitting job. "Oh no, I don't babysit, just do deliveries," Marcus said. "Like with restaurants, aren't we too young for that?" Toby asked him. "No, nothing like that. If you want to make some money, you don't have to work too hard. Just pick up a bag and drop it somewhere," Marcus said. Toby was surprised. "They pay about £50, sometimes 100, Marcus added. Toby couldn't believe it. The most he had made doing chores was £10 in 4 hours. He begged Marcus to introduce him to them and Marcus agreed. He told Toby to follow him after school. After school, they rode their bicycles 2.5 miles before they got to the restaurant. Marcus took him through the back, greeting everyone with a familiarity that put Toby at ease. Once Marcus introduced Toby to the man, whose name was Mr. J, he picked up a brown package from the corner of the room, put it in his bag and left. Toby was staring at the door Marcus had walked out of when the deep voice of Mr. J jolted him back. Mr. J sternly warned Toby not to talk to anyone, take anything from anyone, or stop anywhere. He also warned him not to open the bag. He then gave Toby a delivery address and asked him to drop it off before 8 p.m. Toby took the bag from the man without saying anything. He looked at the time and it was already 6 p.m. His curfew was for 7 p.m. So he decided to call home and let his aunt know he might be a little late. He called from the nearest phone booth and his cousin answered. "Taiwo, tell your mom I'll be back very late. My mates and I are going to a library to finish some homework," he lied. After Toby hung up, he got on his bicycle and started riding. The place he was going to was at least 30 minutes away, and he'd have to stop occasionally for directions. By the time Toby got there, it was 10 minutes to 7. He rode to the back of the building and parked his bicycle in the alley. He knocked on the door, and a man in a suit opened it. "Yes?" the man asked. "Mr. Brown asked me to deliver something," Toby replied. The man said nothing. He just looked around, then stepped aside for Toby to enter. When he did, the man asked him to follow. In the office, the man behind the desk stretched his hand out. Toby gave him the bag and he snapped his fingers, alerting the tall man who brought Toby in to give him a suitcase. Toby said to them that he couldn't take the suitcase, so the man said he could go. Just as he stepped out of the office, he heard gunshots. The men from the office ran out, gun in hand. It was a shootout. Toby hid somewhere in a cabinet. He was there for some time and held his breath when he heard footsteps. The cabinet opened and it was a police officer. Toby was then taken to a station where he was questioned but couldn't say anything. He was in shock and couldn't speak, so his aunt's number was taken from his phone book. She got to the police precinct in the part of town, looking disheveled, She was briefed about the situation and she learned that the club her nephew was found at was the front for a major drug and human trafficking operations they had been tracking for years. Toby had been transporting drugs unknowingly. The police recommended a therapist for him to see. The therapist was a woman with caring eyes. She also specialized in music therapy. For a month, they played music instruments together, or he just listened to her talk. She told him music will always be there, even if he wanted a full-time career, and that resonated. Now, if Toby didn't have all these people to help him turn his life around, he might have ended up a nobody. So today, as Toby looked through the profiles of gifted students for the next cohort of his scholarship program, he paid special attention to one of the boys who wrote about his interest in music. He reminded Toby of being 14 and living with his aunt in Islington and wanting nothing more than being a musician. He picked Samuel as his first choice and resolved to help as many students as possible. He felt that since he got a second chance, everyone else deserved one.